On the other side of a storm is the strength that comes from navigating through it. Raise your sail and begin. Just because you're struggling doesn't mean that you're failing. I think sometimes people equate struggling with failure. It's not. It isn't even close. In fact, if you're struggling, it tells me that you're still in the game. We don't see these incredible opportunities first, because every opportunity that you and I have is surrounded by a problem. I've never gone to an opportunity that I didn't have to go to the door of problems first. So the next time you have an obstacle, a difficulty, an adversity in your life, don't allow the crisis to numb you. Be alive, learn, feel, fail, learn. That's what it's all about if you want to make this difficult time a good time. I just want you to know that there's a hero within you. I know there is. And during this tough time, let the hero out. Let people see the best of you, your highest aspirations. You be the one who's the lifter and the encourager.
Hey, welcome again to the John Maxwell Leadership When It Matters Most Leader Series. Now, some of you have been watching now for almost 12 weeks, and you know when crisis happens, leaders show up. John has challenged us whether we're a player or a pretender. And it was about 2 weeks ago that John looked at me and said, Mark, I've been talking a good bit with a lesson or with something to share. Now I want to interact with leaders who are leading when it matters the most. I've got to tell you, we will have some good ones. We had a good one last week, but today on June the 15th, I'm going to tell you, this guy that you're seeing right now is someone that John and I thought of immediately. This is a leader's leader. Now, no pressure, Casey, but I'm going to tell you, man, you look good. How did John and I yet again not get the memo about a hat?
Yeah, no movement gear at all, and I was disappointed. I thought you'd be wearing your jackets or something, man. I try to keep you flush with gear.
I have the movement T-shirts that I take my long walks in.
Oh yeah, we've been sending workout videos back and forth. John will send me a video just drenched in sweat. I love it. That's he's using it. It's like seeing one of John's books and the pages are all tattered. Man, we're using the material.
All right, so Casey, your wife is big into fitness, but John, you got to share Casey and our entire audience. How much of you has disappeared through coronavirus?
Well, 32 pounds so far, but I don't, Case, you probably can't see this. I'll send this to you, but I want to show you a picture of yesterday. I walked yesterday. Well, in the last 3 days, I've walked 26 miles, and that's me, buddy. I'm out there. I'm out there sweating yesterday. I just did about 7 yesterday. Plus, I did a mile swim yesterday. But anyway, I'm not there. I've got another 15 to go, and then of course I do my 73 push-ups every day, and you're always doing that too for me. So, but anyway, I'm loving it, and my goal is to hang around a long time. Really, it is. There's so many exciting things happening in our life and in the John Maxwell enterprise that honestly, I got all these younger people around me, and I want to hang with them until they all retire. You follow what I mean?
Yeah.
So
people that are listening think they want to hang with you. They think they want to hang with you. As someone who's had the privilege of doing that, let me tell you, you don't have the energy. Okay, you know right now you don't have the juice. This guy, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, doesn't take a break, wakes up on the rower, goes to bed giving a leadership lesson. I'm pretty sure he does not sleep, and it's inspiring. I never thought I'd say I'd want to see less of John Maxwell, but I'm glad to see 32 pounds less of John Maxwell. That's right. Man, I'm proud of you, brother. That's awesome.
That's exactly right. Well, y'all just mentioned it, but we truly have traveled to parts of the world with Casey Crawford and his team. And some of you may not know Movement Mortgage. You may not know Casey, but by the time we're done in an hour from now, you will know leadership. I promise you that. Casey, speaking of crisis, you started a mortgage company in 2007, 2008. Don't know what you were thinking, but I want you to share a little bit of your story. And please, don't spare the details, because this is a humble leader right here. Tell us what your team is doing today. Tell us a little bit about the journey and what it's been like to lead beginning in crisis and now through crisis.
It'll be a pleasure. And for me, this is like a family reunion. So man, I'm going to share all the details, all the intimate details, because I told John, before I knew John was pouring into me. John's been coaching me, mentoring me long before we ever met. And I know for so many of you that are watching, you have that kind of relationship with John, where you've gotten some of John's materials, you've watched podcasts, and he's been pouring into it. And I would just take it, receive it, and run with it. Take it, receive it, and run with it. Because in 2007, 2008, that's exactly what I was doing. I had listened, and I have a older, wiser partner who is 70, and he gave me a John Maxwell Leadership Bible and Fail Forward. And at that time, in the company, in the nation's history, we were in the middle of another crisis. We're in the middle of another crisis. This one was an economic crisis that had been caused by the U.S. mortgage market. Now, the U.S. economy is 2 times the size of the next closest economy in the world. And at the epicenter of that economy, it was the U.S. mortgage market. And it is no exaggeration to say, I know we have friends all over the world watching this right now, but it's no exaggeration to say that the U.S. mortgage market caused the Great Recession of 2007, 2008 that hit the world and really brought down world economies. And we sat right at the epicenter of that. And actually, more particularly, I'm in a city in America called Charlotte, North Carolina. And Charlotte is known as the first city built on banking. So we had 2 of the biggest banks in the biggest economy in the world sitting in our little city. We had Bank of America and Wachovia. And at that time, Wachovia shuttered and fell, went all the way down. Bank of America came down to less than $1. And the great investor Warren Buffett, I remember seeing him come out on CNBC, and he sent shivers through my spine, because he had always been this pillar of strength and optimism about the U.S. economy. And at that point in time, he came out and said, things are so bad, our nation is on the brink. Our nation is on the brink. And he always has some good, just hang on, it'll be great for America long term or something. And he said, our nation is on the brink. And I'll never forget that. That was just a poignant memory to me. And so, as a leader, John had taught us, what do you do in times of adversity? What do you do in times of adversity? And we are always looking to add value to people's lives. And in deep, deep times of adversity, then and now, there's probably more opportunity. It's more apparent in how you can add value to people's lives. They're screaming for it. And the value that was needed at that time in 2007, 2008 was for a financial services company, particularly a mortgage company in the U.S., to step up and tell a new story in mortgages. We had lost trust as an industry fundamentally with not only the United States, but the world. And I believe that the federal government was still going to hold high the value of individual home ownership, and that people were really hungry to have their money entrusted to an organization that they also trusted, that they believed in. And so I been taught and poured into by John for so many years, and said, well, if we're going to do a company, let's base one on the ideals and values that we want to love and value people. We want to love and value people. And so we said, we exist. I said, you're supposed to come up with a mission statement, right? And there was 2 of us, so we had to have a mission statement. I said, we're going to exist to love and value people. So, well, how do you do that? I said, well, we're going to do it by leading a movement of change in our industry, in the financial services industry in the United States, in corporate cultures more broadly, because we didn't want to just be about us. Whatever we did, we wanted to be big enough to export, and then communities around the world. And so I love Simon Sinek. I know you had him on last week, and I love that he wrote The Infinite Game. I wish he had written it a decade ago, so I would have had it as a little bit more of an instruction manual. But we already had kind of a sense of that there was this existential opportunity that was bigger than we were, because we saw the depth and the pain and the hurt was so much bigger than we were and so much bigger than our community. And the world was hungry for a new story. And that all sounds good and fine, but there were 2 of us. 2 of us. And so we had this monster vision to be a movement of change in our industry and corporate cultures and communities around the world. And then there were 2 of us. And how do you start? I mean, I love some of those questions I saw you all answer last week, because even with the biggest of visions with a deep desire to transform corporate cultures, I mean, that's a pretty big one, right? And then transform communities around the world. That's even larger one. Where do you start? And man, you do the next right thing. You love and value and transform the relationships you're in. You love and value and bring value to those around you. And so we began just that. And we started to architect a company in every way, shape, and form that we could imagine, and say, hey, if we were going to wake up and work for our dream organization, what would it look like? And we just started to try to build movement with that in mind, thinking about a healthy, vibrant community that we always wanted to be a part of. And we wanted it to value who we were professionally and who we were personally. And so I said, man, if we just have professional success and we blow personal lives up in the meantime, we're a failure. We're a complete failure. And so I said, it's imperative, and it's a non-negotiable that we're going to pour into our people to have personal and professional success. And over the last 12 years, it's been an incredible journey. We'll close about, I don't know, 1 out of every 40 home purchases in the U.S. this year. We have about 4,000 team members around the U.S. We're a $1 billion organization. We'll fund, I don't know, about $30 billion in mortgages this year. And man, we've had the privilege of building affordable housing projects, of building multiple schools now, inner city charter schools, of planting hope centers all over Central and South America. Many of them with you all, of getting to meet the greatest leader instructor in the world, and partnering with your organization to live out that final part of our mission of be a movement of change in communities around the world. And I'm a person of faith. Our company's anchored in a lot of faith, and there's just a line of scripture that God can do exceedingly much more than we can hope or imagine, according to His power and purpose at work in us. And I think that would be just our testimony and stories, that we have been overwhelmed to see how powerful it is to step into broken, hurting places in the world with a vision of hope, and that's never more true again today. We find ourselves in a time of crisis in our nation and around the world, and I think people are still hungry for that same hope.
So, John, you've traveled with Casey. You've been up, spoke to, you mentor with obviously some of his leaders. Maybe there's something else you've observed about Casey's leadership or what he's doing in the community of Charlotte that you want to pull out before I go to our questions.
Yeah, I would like to say a couple of things. Thanks, Casey. That was really a good overview, helping our people understand that you started your business in a crisis. But I love the fact that you talked about how from the very beginning you have had your values. You've had your value act together. And I remember a conversation you and I had, Casey, a few months ago, where you shared with me that the reason you really got into business was to have a business that could obviously help people and make money, but it was to generate money for the social causes that you just knew needed to be met and weren't being met. And so it looked to me like from the very beginning, in fact, I'm coming back to you, Casey, on this to make sure that I'm right on it. It looked like in the very beginning, you realize you have to have a business that can make money. If your business doesn't make any money, you're not going to be able to do what you need to do. But it wasn't to make money just for you to hoard and get incredibly rich and say I can have anything I want to have. There was a bigger cause, and that is we want to take care of our people. Obviously, we want to make money. We want to take good care of our people. But there was a step beyond it that I think a lot of people, when they start business, just totally miss, and that is that you wanted to immediately have significance, which is all about serving others, finding needs, being able to use your people, your resources, your finances to meet those needs. And it seemed to me like, Casey, you started Movement Mortgage with that as the core of your dream. Am I correct, or am I not?
Yeah, you are correct, John. I think, again, what we saw in that 07-08 period was that the financial services, and particularly banks, were marked by a perception of greed, that they would take the rules of the game and use them in any way, shape, or form they could. As long as we don't go to jail, we're going to do anything we can to make sure we get as much as we can off the table to our side. And that's kind of how they thought about the world. And we said, man, I think that there is an opportunity here for America and really the world to patronize an organization who they see themselves as a conduit where man, our communities are stronger and healthier because we exist within them. So as people patronize Movement Mortgage, that money is flowed out into our foundation. Our foundation takes that money and pours it out into the most marginalized, vulnerable kids in our communities. And again, that message has been more powerful than right now.
This is beautiful. Let me just stay here with you for a moment. Mark, we'll get to the questions in a second, but there's just a couple things I don't want all of our viewers to miss. So it seems to me that you had that you put values and vision right together.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not either or, it's both and. And it seems to me like you had a vision lift. And I know the story again, and maybe you'll need to take a moment and share with our viewers this story. But I know your vision was to be able to turn mortgages around much quicker than I think the 90-day period where people just had to wait for 90 days. And you said, no. There has to be a quicker way, a better way, so that people can know that A, they're going to get their money, and B, they can get it a lot sooner. So you had a different vision than most of the mortgage companies to turn the loans around quickly, which is a vision lift. You had that was something that was creative. That kind of distinguished you. That set you apart. That marked you. And so now people are coming to Movement Mortgage because they don't have to wait 90 days. So you did a vision lift, and then you started the company with what I call a values lift. And that is, we're going to live beyond ourselves. And I think that is so important to all of us right now, right with what we're going through, that you really have to have both. You have to have a vision lift. You got to have an idea or a thought that marks you and sets you apart, so that you can have what I call the edge, the business edge, so that you can, get out in front of the race.
Yes.
But you also, if you have the values lift, it's kind of like the soul of why you do it. And the vision lift is seeing something that's a little different. Would you agree with that you had kind of like the values lift and the vision lift almost from the very beginning that maybe helped set you apart?
100%. And so we talk about excellence a lot. And I also think we talk about bringing value to other people. And I think at that time, we were asking the question. It's a great question. I had a friend of mine tell me, said, always ask, who is my customer and what problem am I trying to solve? And in 07, 08, the problem that was solved was where banks were taking months to get mortgages done. People couldn't buy houses because the banks couldn't get the loans processed. So the fundamental business problem we were going to solve is, hey, we are going to streamline this process, make it easier, faster, and simpler for consumers. That is how I'm going to bring value to their life. They want to own a home. It's the number one thing they can do to help themselves create wealth in the United States. We're going to help them do that more easily. Fundamental, right? Just bring value to their life in that way. Secondarily, hey, we have this vision that if we do that really well, if we help them and serve them in that way really well, that they would also really appreciate being a part of an organization and patronizing an organization that had a more transcendent, infinite purpose to the wealth that it was creating. That while it's encouraging to see, if you have a stock portfolio, get a dividend check from a bank that you're invested in, fundamentally, most of the money, 99.9% of the money generated by the largest financial institutions in the world go to the wealthiest in the world. It stays right in those in those circles. And what we said is actually we want to think about how we can reinvest in our most marginalized, most vulnerable kids in our communities, because we know we're as strong as our weakest link. And man, if our kids aren't succeeding in communities, our communities aren't thriving and succeeding. And so we've been able to. We've been able to donate over $500 million in equity into our foundation, and we'll be dispersed about $100 million in cash this year, back out into building schools to really love and pour into our most marginalized kids and give them a transformative future. Where they have hope, and one where they know that they're going to be able to take part in the American dream that we've been able to take part in, as a part of Movement Mortgage. So. It was both of those things. We had to bring tangible value to people's life, and then hopefully offer them a vision of something bigger.
Yeah. Okay. Look, again, Mark, I'm sorry. I'm being a hog here, but this is so good. And I mean, I'm taking notes off of him, and I don't want to miss it for myself, and I don't want all of our viewers to miss it too, because you're just laying gold out in front of us right now, Casey. And so one of the things that set you apart, and I think the reason Movement Mortgage, from in a little like 12 years, going from just two people to now the fifth, sixth largest mortgage company in America, but to me, you got the idea of getting the mortgages get shorter time. Let's get them down, and you were the first to do that. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, we actually re-engineered the process.
And just a moment. This is so good. I don't want him to miss this. It wasn't easy engineering the process, because the loan people didn't think it was possible to reduce it from 90 days to 30 days. So your first challenges weren't the customer out there. They'd say, I'd like to have a loan a lot quicker. Weren't the first challenges you had the people that were really in the industry who basically had never done it that way before, basically liked it the way they had it, and were very resistant to the change. Is that not true?
That is absolutely true. So one of the things that we did was we put ourselves in the customer's shoes and said, if I, as I would get a mortgage, how would I treat my little sister? And fundamentally, my little sister, and she has got a number of mortgages with us. And when she did, I gave her a great loan officer, of course, and he sat down with her and counseled her about like how much debt she had, and how much income, and how much house she'd be able to afford. But then he had to give her to a credit decision maker to really affirm that, hey, you can afford this much house, because we don't want anyone buying a house that would become the debt of their nightmares. House of their dreams, debt of their nightmares, right? We don't want that. We want people that own homes that they can afford for a long period of time. So what we said, we'll invest in you by having a credit decision maker look at your file before you start shopping for a home. Because remember in 07, 08, what was happening is that people were buying too much home and they were getting foreclosed on. And that ruined families, crushed families. But that often happened because they had fallen in love with the house, and it wasn't until the very end of the process that somebody came in and said, I'm sorry, you don't qualify, it's too much home. By that time, they'd fall in love and they'd try to stretch and make it work, and a lot of bad decisions were made. So we said, we're going to put that credit decisioning process before you ever stop shopping. And we call it, know before you owe. And we said, hey, we're going to do it upfront underwrite so that people could know how much home they could afford before they started shopping. Pretty simple concept, pretty fundamental. Yeah, everyone goes, well, yeah, that makes sense. Well, it does, but in 07, 08, no one did it.
Right.
Because they said the most constrained resource in the industry, very, very smart people doing Six Sigma, process charts, said the most constrained resource in the industry is the credit decision-making underwriter. And so we need them to touch the file last once everything else has been done, and then we give it to this person. The problem with that was it wasn't the right process for the customer. It was the right process for the bank. It wasn't the right process for the customer. And so we just took that very simple view of, is this right for the customer? Is this what I would want? Is this the process I would want to go through? And we said, no, fundamentally, it's not. It's not what I would put my little sister through. And so when we said that, I said, well, everyone's someone's sister, everyone's someone's father, everyone's someone's mother. And so every one of our clients is a family member to somebody. And why would we treat them any differently than we would treat our own family? And so we architected that process, putting that credit decision maker up front. And then once they had done that, we said, is there any reason in the world why we can't get their loan done in 7 business days? And because that's what I'd want to do for my little sister. Take all the stress and be done. Like, let her know, hey, we're done weeks ahead. We're not going to come sliding on 2 wheels. We're going to be done weeks ahead for you, okay? So you can relax and know that you can buy your home. And it turns out that more than just my little sister would like a process like that, where they knew how much they could afford before they started shopping. And they had their loan done weeks ahead of that closing date to take the stress out. And so we grew 100% organically with just trying to bring that tangible value to each and every customer that we served with a very simple tweak. This wasn't, we weren't Bill Gates writing a new, operating system that no one else had thought of before. It was just saying, hey, who's my customer and what problem am I trying to solve?
Yeah. And again, real quickly, it goes back to the Zig Ziglar comment that I heard when I was in my 20s. If you'll help people get what they want, they're going to help you get everything that you need. And so you're looking at the customer. You're not looking to please the people in the mortgage industry. You're looking to please the people, the customers. But I want our viewers to understand that some of the battles that when you're wanting to be creative and when you're wanting to be first, the most of the battles that you have aren't for the person that you're trying to serve out there. It's your team. It's the people on the inside who are still wanting to hold on to what they know and what is secure, what makes them comfortable, that process. And you had to fight that system to break through it so that you could do what you did. And just quickly, how long did it take you from the idea of let's shorten this mortgage down from 90 days to how quickly you just shared? How long did it take you to convince your people? What did you do when your people on the inside were dragging their feet and they weren't convinced and they didn't want to go that way? Just give us a little bit of that touch too.
Yeah. So when we came out with that statement, again, my partner Toby Harris is an operations guru and pretty definitive in decision making. And so I think it was about a Thursday, and he let us know that Monday everything would be different. We're going to do this differently. and there were a lot of blank stares. A lot of, you can't do this. But then people laughed because they just knew that Toby wasn't backing up and backing off of this vision. It's amazing, watching people live up to the expectations you place upon them. and that was a really neat thing to watch. But I will tell you that there were still doubts. Right, there were still doubts. So people begrudgingly, it was their job. There weren't a lot of jobs out there in 07, 08. So people were like, okay, we'll do this. And they started working, but there were a lot of questions, of us. And is this really right? Oh my gosh, this seems like more work. And we can never do this for every loan. And so we started taking metrics. Yes, we can. And we had to reinforce that message. Daily, weekly, hourly. We have posters up all over our 671, 6 hours upfront underwrite, 7 days process, 1 day in closing. There were mantras that we just said. People did when they came to the organization. We told them this is who we are and this is how we do things. And if you're going to be a part of this organization, we operate like this. And again, it was visually reinforced. It was audibly reinforced. It was experientially reinforced. And then we celebrate success. And every loan wasn't a success. We weren't able to get every loan done in 7 days. When we started, actually only 30% of the loans in our first 6 months, we were getting done in 7 business days.
Wow.
Right. And people go, oh, we could never do it. We could never do it. No, are you kidding me? If in 6 months we're getting 30%, imagine what we're going to do in the next 6 months. Imagine 2 years from now. And this month, for instance, last month, we closed $3 billion of mortgages, and 82% of them were done in 7 business days from home. And that's twice as much as we've ever done, in the company history. But that's a 10-year journey. That's a 10-year journey. And I'd encourage entrepreneurs like that. Like it's progress is hard fought. I love, John, your picture of going uphill, and it is a step at a time. And you look at some of those best Sherpas, and they take one step and they stand. They take another step and they stand. Take another step and they stand. And you're just incrementally building on those successes. And you have to wake up and keep battling at it daily. And we did. And we started 33, and now we're up at 82, and we're closing more in a month than we used to close we close more in a week than we used to close in a year. So,
okay, Casey, your story is exceptional. It's incredibly practical and it's applicable. Let's not miss this. Again, I'm so glad all of you are with us today. And Casey, I'm glad you're telling your story, because there's just so much I got to pull out of it. Because if you're going to be the first, and they were the first with the shortening the mortgage, and if you're going to do things that cause and create change, okay, so you got 2 things. To be first, you had to have a lot of changes. You had to change it. And if you want to stand out during a crisis, okay, don't miss this. 90% of your battles are not on the outside. They're on the inside. To win this, to win this race, you've got to change the inside. I did a talk one time many, many years ago. Mark, you'll remember this. It's called Winning is an Inside Job. And the whole part of it is, if you can win on the inside, the outside is an automatic win. You just got to get it on the inside. And Casey, yours, and I've heard Toby tell the story that you're just telling. Your commitment to say, no, I know you think it's not possible, but it is possible, and we are going to do it. And keep all the visual stuff and all the reinforcement. You had to stay on it every day. And who were you staying on? You were staying on the people on your team. Why? Because you knew that the only way you could get to that customer with what you wanted to do is for your team to change. And so when you think about going first, or when you think about creating change, or you think about the crisis that we're in right now, and how do you set yourself apart, stand out in the crowd, distinguish yourself? What I don't want you to miss in Casey's story is his biggest battles were on the inside. And that's going to be true in your company also, because people don't want to change, and people like what they've always done because it keeps them comfortable. So, Casey, I think it's huge. I think it's just huge what you did. Put your values out there. Values lift, vision lift. Viewers be thinking, what's my vision lift? What's going to make me unique? How are we going to be the first out there? And how are we going to put the customer first? And then what kind of values? It's kind of like vision lift get you started out of the gate first. And if you get started out of the gate first, you have a high possibility of winning. But values lift sustains you. It's the fuel that after you start, because when you start winning financially, the second question is, now am I going to have something that has purpose with those finances bigger than me? And so those are great lessons. And thank you for sharing your story. Mark, thanks for letting us start off with Casey on that, because
powerful.
What's amazing is we didn't even talk football.
What's that?
I said, what's amazing, we didn't even talk football. I was going to give you the John Gruden Super Bowl story on that one, man. It was like, we'll do that one another time. But he does that's what we learned, I think, so much of it from was Gruden telling us how Tampa Bay was going to win its first Super Bowl. With that same story, though. It's the same story. One of the most iconic coaches in the world, one of the best leaders I've served under. And he had to change the narrative internally on the team first. We'd never won below 32 degrees. And the first time they ever won a Super Bowl under his leadership, and it started day one of practice. World championship, this group this year. So, yeah, it's true at every level, in every kind of team. And honestly, John, here's a little secret. This is just a John Maxwell family. This doesn't go anywhere. Nobody's going to watch this podcast.
It's just between us, okay?
Yeah, it's just
the viewers don't watch this. Just turn this off. Viewers. Just turn this off.
My team thought I was trying to encourage them. I was really encouraging myself. I had to remind myself every day, we can do this. We are going to do this. It's worth it. It's worthy, and it's possible. And I think that's so important. I mean, don't ever underestimate that, leaders. The power and the necessity of reminding yourself of your vision is.
Casey, it goes back to the question people ask me what my greatest leadership challenge is. I said, well, that's easy. My greatest leadership challenge is leading me. Good Lord, I'm always the problem. Hey, I'm always the problem. It's easy to tell everybody else what to do. I mean, good Lord, that's simple stuff. It's me leading the way. And so what you're saying there is when you're out on the pioneer front end, it's never happened before, Edge, as a leader. You don't have any certainties of experience. You can't point back to 5 years ago and say, I did it once, I can do it again. So you can't build off of a past victory. You're in virgin territory yourself. So you have to constantly do self-talk. You have to constantly be talk. And by the way, the most important voice you're going to hear today is your voice.
Yes.
Because what you say to yourself is 10 to 1 what somebody else says to you. Because if you say it to yourself, you've already bought into whatever you're saying. And so there's a huge importance there of Casey every day getting himself up, doing something has never been done before, where a whole bunch of people are doubting, can it be done? And a whole bunch of people are, hey, there's a lot of doubting and there's a lot of dragging. And here he comes every day, gets up, and he has to talk to himself. And he has to say, this is possible. I'm going to believe it. I'm going to live it. I'm going to express it.
Yes.
I'm going to share it.
Yes.
I'm going to be the example of it. Because as the leader goes, everyone else goes. The leader knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And that's what you did, Casey. And what became convincing was not results, because in the beginning, you don't have results.
You have them. Yeah.
You don't get there in the beginning. So I always love people say, well, if we could just get a win, we could all be encouraged. You don't get a win. You get a step.
Yes.
And then you get another step. And then you get another step. But when the leader is on every step saying, look what we're doing. Hey, we're getting closer. We're not there, but we're getting closer. And it has that visual, beautiful modeling example. I'm with you in this. That is pure leadership. And that's the kind of leadership that gets you out of the block quick and creates change and allows you to really get some traction so that you can go the right way. Man, Casey, I'm so inspired. I'm ready to come over and I don't know, be what kind of one of your reps? Put me in, coach. Put me in,
if this
coach.
leadership thing doesn't work out, John, just let me know.
I've lost some weight. I'm in better shape. Put me in, coach. Try me now.
Hey, we're going to get into what Movement Mortgage is doing in the community. And guys, as I knew, this could go for 3 hours today. It could. But I want to stay. That's right. I want to stay with business right now. Casey, everything you just described, let's not forget, was in crisis. And I'm sure the crisis paved the way for you to be able to revolutionize the customer experience. So let's stay in that mindset, because Dan's question from Stuart, Florida, says, what is the best piece of advice you would give a business owner in the current world economy?
Okay. Yeah. So I would go back to the time that the movement was birthed and founded. And it was founded in the time of crisis. And because of that time of crisis, it was evident. It was just so abundantly evident that the world was crying out for a financial services company they could believe in, that had a heart, that was going to act in the best long-term best interest of another. We define love like this. We use an operating definition of love. We say to love is to act in the long-term best interest of another. At a high school, priest give that to me. It's worked for me for a long time. Love can mean a lot of things. Other languages have multiple words for love. We define it as a verb. We say to love is to act in the long-term best interest of another. And in 07, 08, it was abundantly clear to me that in a time of crisis, the world was crying out for that. Now, we had to think about how to do that in very small, very tangible ways to bring tangible value to customers each and every day by the way we underwrote their loans, by the way we served them in the mortgage process. But we also wanted to have a bigger, more transcendent purpose that those little finite games, right, as Simon would talk about, those finite games, how they laddered up into an infinite game, right? How serving them in their individual mortgage laddered up to an infinite purpose. And I think at times of crisis, what has been really profoundly gratifying to me and encouraging to me is that when we've gone through this next season of crisis in our nation, the rallying cry back to our purpose has been much more about that infinite game that we've been playing than about the finite tactics we use to bring value at any particular season. Because frankly, we did create a movement of change. The regulatory agency in our industry right now has shifted, and they said, hey, we want lenders to let you know before you owe. I said, man, we were doing that before it was cool, before it was necessary. And that's become a standard operating practice of many of the biggest banks in America now is kind of they've replicated a lot of elements of our mortgage process. That's what leaders do. And then so now we continue to shift tactics, but our infinite purpose hasn't shifted. So I would encourage any business leaders out there right now. I love Simon Sinek. I'm so glad you guys had him on. It's like, golly, between John and Simon, those are the two authors and leaders and speakers that really poured into us. And then I used to teach Simon's Start With Why. What a great lesson he teaches. What, how, why, and businesses need to start with that why, that purpose. And I think it's all the more true today. If we're in a time of crisis, you can see our nation's hurting. Mm-hmm. Our nation's hurting. It's groaning. And man, there are in any community you're a part of, there are going to be deep and real needs that you can see that maybe could be met in some way by your organization. Now, you might have an ice cream shop. You might not have a shop that particularly pours into some specific need, but the purpose of your ice cream shop, man, might be to bring joy and hope to the neighborhood you're a part of, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to do that by providing amazing ice cream and an incredible experience to individuals when they come in or families when they're coming in to my shop. And I'm going to think about that, how to bring value to these families right now that are hurting and in crisis. And I have a friend who runs a local restaurant here, and I've watched him. He throws big outdoor celebrations. Everyone's 6 feet apart. He brings in a DJ because he knows people are longing for community and they're longing to get out of their homes. And he's filled hundreds of people in a parking lot. I have just a small restaurant because he brought a mic and a DJ and got masks. He had masks and things and created a community event. Now, that's not his business, but his purpose was to connect families and bring value to families' lives. And so he was doing that a little bit differently. And we're all getting takeout and carry out from him, and he's doing it so respectfully. And so I think in any part of the community, in any part of the country right now, man, this crisis is revealing what your deep purpose needs to be and should be. And that's movement. We are, gosh, all the more trying to live into that transcendent purpose that we had 10 years ago in the middle of this crisis, because I think it's all the more necessary.
John, best advice that you could give to a leader trying to lead a business in this time?
Well, it's what Casey's saying, focus on the people. And Casey, your illustration you just gave of your friend that has a restaurant, and of course you've got social distancing. He's got a little restaurant. When you social distance in a restaurant, if you could hold 50, now you can hold 20. Yep. And so immediately you realize, so what's he do? He thinks of the people. They all want to get together. Yes. So let's get creative. Let's get fun. Let's go out to the parking lot. Let's go get the PA system out there. Let's put the tables out there. We can serve our people in the parking lot than we can in the restaurant. And here's what happens. As long as I think about me, I lose creativity.
Wow.
The moment that I think about others and how I meet their need where they are, the creativity begins to flow. And so it's like communication, Mark. When people ask me, how do you become a great communicator? Step number one is so very simple. Get over yourself. Period.
Yeah.
Because when people cannot communicate well, it's because they haven't gotten over themselves. So when I get up to speak, if I'm not over myself, I'm trying to make a good presentation, and I hope you like me, and do I look good, and do I sound good, and I'm on target, and you think I'm interesting, and it's all about me. And so the people are listening to you, but they're not connecting with you. The connection always goes when I leave wherever I am and I go to where they are. And that's exactly what the restaurant owner did. The restaurant owner said, my gosh, if we do social distancing in our restaurant, hey, we got a problem. We're only going to be able to have a third of the people we normally do. So that isn't a really good thing. But because he's willing to go on the outside, he's willing to get outside himself, say, well, let's go out in the parking lot. He's out there. Whoever thought that the parking lot would be the place where he did his business? That's where he thought he was going to park cars. Hey, he found out it's expensive to park cars in a parking lot. Put tables out there. Get people out there around the table. So what I want all of our viewers to catch in this, because this is a lesson that is so appropriate to where we are, because Casey, you have done this. This isn't theory. This isn't like these are some ideas. I think they could work. You have proven that these things work. Your restaurant owner proves that they can work. And I'm just saying to all of you out there, hey, if you got a restaurant, turn your parking lot into the restaurant. I mean, again, Casey, I wrote it down because you said it earlier in your talk. I mean, I got my page full of stuff, and I got something I want you to repeat for a moment because I didn't get it. I want to make sure our viewers get it. And here it is. You said, adversity brings more opportunity. But it only brings more opportunity if you think of others and if you get creative and outside of the box. Now, you also said you gave a definition of loved, and it was something about love was action. Love is to act in the was it long-term benefit of others or something? Because that's a great.
Almost, John. Yeah. Love, we say love's a verb. Yeah, we use love as a verb. And we say to love is to act, not to think about, not to think fondly of, to love is to act in the long-term best interest of another. To love is to act in the long. So we think about, hey, and that's a non-negotiable for our organization. We say you do not join this organization, do not sign up to be a part of this community, of this movement, if you cannot wake up saying, I'm going to act in the long-term best interest every day of my teammates. I'm going to wake up and act in the long-term best interest every day of my customers. And I'm going to wake up and act in the long-term best interest every day of my community. And that's our guiding North Star. Are we acting in the long-term best interest of another? And if I could just make one more point on that value thing, John, bringing value to people's lives. There's another thing I think that happens in that. So my friend who owns the restaurant, if he had focused his whole team on, we got to sell $10,000 of steaks this week or this month. We got to sell this many meals this month. He didn't. What he focused on was, we need to bring hope. We need our community's hurting. People are isolated. We need to bring hope. How do we do that? Well, what God's blessed us with, what He's equipped is an ability to create great meals. We do meals really well. We cook really good food, but we also know how to create an environment. And so the way we are uniquely going to bring hope, with the way we're equipped, with the way we're positioned, with what people know about us in the community, is that we're going to create great experiences and feed them, and bring people joy, and bring people hope, and bring people a sense of community through this tool and gift, right? And then because his business is actually, they're doing well in the virus things, because it's all about how he's equipped to serve others. Conversely, with movement, we had a little different challenge. The federal government lowered mortgage rates to help the U.S. economy. That's a really important thing. And we knew our job was to help partner with our federal government to make sure more Americans could lower their cost of home ownership. And then Americans that wanted to buy a house had more of an opportunity to do so, and more buying power than they've ever had. But we had to do it from home all of a sudden. Now I got the same people. People are getting burned out. People are, they're trying to work in home offices. I'm sitting here in an upstairs bedroom. I built a house a couple years ago, and this is how much I never imagined working from home. I didn't even build a home office. Okay, I don't even have a home office. They had to hang a screen behind me just to make this thing look okay. And my folks were looking at me going, Catatalk, like, you're asking us to do more mortgages and, more loans and more work than we've ever done. We got to do it from home with kids running around and dogs and cats and stuff. I said, yeah, but let's remember why. Let's remember why. Our role's critical. America's hurting right now. We're in one of the deepest economic struggles we've been in as a nation. We're hurting. People are unemployed. And our federal government has stepped up and tasked us with the job of bringing financial hope to Americans. So it's not about us. It's about our nation that we live in. It's about the community that we're a part of. And we're going to wake up and act in the long-term best interest of each other, of our customers, and our communities by being more productive than we've ever been from home, so that the Americans receive the benefit that the federal government wants them to receive in the form of lower costs of credit. It's not about us. It's not about us. It's waking up and seeing how many people we can serve. And man, I watched our people, man, the energy starts rising, the purpose starts rising. Because at some point they go, I'm doing enough loans, I'm in my pajamas, and I'm sick and tired. When it's about you, I'll give up on myself all day. I'll give up on myself. My why's not that big. But when I know, man, what I'm doing is impacting someone else's life, when there's a family who's depending on me waking up and bringing my best to serve them, to bring them hope, oh gosh, man, people just go places and do things that they never would have done just for themselves. And man, whether it's a little restaurant business in Florida or you're running a big financial services business, man, anchor in that why and that purpose. And then, like John said, creatively think about how you've been positioned to bring value to those people in your life.
Hey, let's go to a question from Raymond in St. Louis. And Casey, you've got 4,000 employees. You've got hundreds of thousands of customers and people impacted by your services. John, hundreds of thousands of people watch this weekly. So with that frame of reference, Raymond asked both of you, we'll start with you, Casey. Now more than ever, our people want to be led, but they also want to be heard. What is the best way for leaders to go about doing that the right way? The difference between leading and hearing in times like this. Casey, we'll go with you first.
Well, I don't know if I would juxtapose them. I'd say there's a continuum of hearing and leading. I don't know if it's either or. And truly, so I think we're all in process on different things, and this is what I'm very much in process on. This is a weakness, I'd say, for me as a leader, because I haven't trained in it real well, and I came out of a football environment. I played football for the first half of my life, and I can tell you that the leadership model in football is not one of listening and leading. Okay, it isn't a democracy. People don't vote. They don't ask for a lot of input. The coach shows up with a game plan, and not a lot of words are spoken both ways. Okay, a lot of directions given, and then your livelihood is dependent on how quickly you execute those directions. So I didn't have a lot of modeling for what it looks like for a leader to listen and sit and hear from the teams that they're leading. But I know that it's important, and I've read John and John has poured into me in this regard as well, and really helped me think about this. And so I think in times of crisis like this, one of the things we did pause to do was to just pause and listen before we spoke. Leaders speak, and yes, leaders need to speak, and we've amped up communication tremendously during this time. But I think we've also stopped to listen and ask that same fundamental question: who's my customer, and what problem am I trying to solve? What's really going on here with people in their lives, and that's been really important. It's important for me, and it's frankly it's the number one thing I have to remind myself of before I want to act. Because I'm really quick to go to solutions. I'm really quick to go to action plans. I can see them, and I think I know where we need to go as an organization. I've realized that sometimes I really need to do a better job of meeting people where they are. John has poured that into me. He says, before you're going to take people where you think they need to go, Casey, it's about you, not about you. That you need to meet them where they are, and I think that's critically important to hear and to listen and to meet them where they are. I also believe there is a ditch on that side of the hearing listening road, and I have watched leaders actually fall into this ditch where they spend so much time listening and hearing and empathizing and no time then giving hope. Because I think one of the worst things we can do is if listening becomes company in the ditch, man, misery loves company, right? All I've done now is just let someone we're commiserating, right, in a deep and dark place. And so if my listening doesn't then turn into encouragement and in turn to hope and vision and a pathway forward, I don't know that I've served them very well. I don't know that I served. So I think that both are critically important. It starts with listening. It starts with empathy. It starts with getting in the ditch with folks. But then you have to have the courage as the leader to say, hey, and we're not going to stay here. We're not going to stay here. You know, there is a hope, and I'm going to help walk with you. We're going to do this together, but we're going to get up out of this ditch. And we're going to get back on the road, and we're going to keep traveling because it's critical and it's important. It's important for your life, for mine, and for this whole community that we don't stay paralyzed in the ditch.
John.
Well, I'm listening to Casey, and of course, one of the things I've taught, you know, in our John Maxwell Enterprise, in our corporate division, Mark, we talk about the 5 levels of leadership. Mm-hmm. And level number 2 is relationship level. And that's where I talk about the fact that you have to find people before you can lead them. And so when we're talking about listening, you know, in that teaching, in that curriculum, I talk about the fact that leaders listen, they learn, and then they lead. Now, Casey, everybody identifies with Casey that's a leader, and that is leaders have a bias for action. And so the tendency for us is and by the way, leaders see before others see and more than others see. And so it's kind of like they just go, it's just kind of like, I'm going over here. Hey, come on, right here's where we need to be. Mm. And I've discovered in my leadership that it all begins with listening. And the reason it all begins with listening is listening reduces assumptions. And assumptions is the mother of all mess ups in leadership. When I begin to assume, I know what my people think and assume where they are, then I begin to lead them, not according to where they are. I begin to lead them to where I think they are. There's a world of difference. So there's a great amount of asking questions and listening. And why am I listening? Am I just listening to make them say, well, he's a nice guy? No, I'm listening because they have something to teach me. Jack Welch taught me that. He said when he was at General Electric, he would go into the office, see the manager of the plant for 30 minutes, and then he would spend the whole day out on the line. And he would ask questions. And when he would come back that evening, he'd look at the manager of the plant and said, did you know this? And did you realize this? And did you have any idea about that? And the manager, no. Well, oh, no. Wow. Wow. What's happening? Well, what happened is Jack said, I knew that if I was going to go find out what I needed to do, I needed to go out down to the people that are doing it and ask the questions and learn from it. So it's more than just being like a happy counselor and listening. It's I'm listening because there's something for me to learn. And what is the result of learning? Improvement. Mm-hmm. So we don't learn just to learn. We're not, I mean, if we want facts, we just turn on our iPhone and ask Siri. She'll give us facts. We're learning to improve, to get better. So I basically listen, learn, take what I'm learning, improve, and now it puts me in a position to lead. And by the way, when I lead after listening and learning, when I lead, the people already know where I am and where I'm going because they're the ones that talk to me. So there's not a disconnect. It's kind of like, it's not like what did Kouzes and Posner say? Great leaders take the vision from me to we. And that listening, learning process makes the vision we, until now the leader is speaking right to where the people live, and they know that, and there's been that connection, and that's very powerful, and that's just absolutely, I think today, just essential in leadership. And one other thought. When Casey was saying, but don't get in the listening ditch and do kumbaya down there and have a pity poor me party. That doesn't. Leaders listen and learn to what? Lead. Don't forget the last part. The only reason you get to be a leader is because you lead. Okay, you can be a counselor and listen. You can be a student and learn, but only a leader listens and learns and leads. And so, what do? You lead them out of the ditch. You don't sit there and feel sorry for yourself and say, woe is me. I guess we probably won't make. No. And you're the first one to get up. You're the first one to get up. Hey, it's Casey. It's Casey every day self-talking to himself on the, let's reduce the mortgage time down. He's talking to himself on the way to work. He's talking to himself during the breaks. He's talking to himself because he understands that he has to lead the way. People do not find the place they need to go on their own. They never have, and they never will. And during a crisis, compound that.
Wow.
because they're as lost as ducks, and they just need somebody to help them.
Guys, I want to go to Greg for our final question. He's in our live audience, and he's from the Philippines. And the reason I wanted to ask you guys this question, because I want to spend the last 5 minutes or so of this session talking about what you both are doing in the world of transformation, in the world of putting values first. And I love Greg's question to get us going here. How would you communicate values to your colleagues that think only profits matter during the time of adversity?
Wonderful question. I think first of all, and I'm sure, man, I can't wait to hear John's answer to this. But I think first of all, it highlights the importance of living out your values all the time. The crisis isn't the time that you decide to start living out your values. The crisis reveals whether or not you're an organization truly built on values.
That's right.
And if you've been built on values, you've been living them out before this crisis hit. You'll live them out while this crisis, we're in the midst of it. And you'll continue to be living them out once this crisis has passed. I will say that the crisis provides an amazing opportunity for organizations to shift to a more values-centric model. And I think it reveals the importance of it and the need for it. And there are a couple things that we've done. And sometimes, you know, we get stuck in this navel gazing thing, right? It'd be better if I wasn't on TV, but you're just looking at your navel and you look at yourself, and you're so self-focused. And man, when I get self-focused, people get depressed. You know, I get discouraged, I get frustrated, I get mad, and because I'm just worried about my own. So, oh man, I haven't been out of this house. I haven't had a haircut until my face looks sharp. I'm on with John Maxwell, greatest leadership guy in the world. Maybe I just don't look. And I'm just so worried about everything that's going on with me and all the ways I'm facing adversity. Sometimes you need to pick your eyes up and see who you can help and serve during a time of crisis. And we did a call with some of our partners, Las Marias Orphanage in Guatemala. Had a lot of our team members on it. I had my 2 little girls on it with me. I got I have a teenage daughter and a 10-year-old daughter. And like any teenager in America, I haven't seen my friends, and what was me and the world and everything else. And, you know, it was such a wonderful experience for my family to get to sit and listen and hear from a group of young women in Guatemala that are walking through this same COVID crisis in a nation that is struggling far more than the United States, with a lot more adversity in their life than we have. And then we got to fellowship together, we got to hear each other, and we got to speak words of encouragement to one another. And so oftentimes, man, we just need to take the eyes off ourselves during a time of crisis. And profit a lot of times reflects ourselves. And we get really excited about profit because it's about us. It means something I can do for myself or something we can do in an organization. And I think it's so important during times like this. You know, we have charter schools, and our kids many of our children get 2/3 of their meals at our schools. And when all this crisis hit, people were so panicked. What am I going to do? I'm trying to stock my shelves. I'm buying 47,000 handy wipes and toilet paper and water bottles and all this kind of stuff. Man, that's why people are so worried. You know, am I going to have 6 months worth of toilet paper in my house? And this and that. I said, you know, I hear you guys say, just want to let you know that we have 1,000 kids who aren't going to get their breakfast or lunch starting tomorrow because school's canceled. And man, when we let that need be known in our community, oh gosh, the outpouring of support. I just watch people stop focusing on themselves and worried about if they're going to have 6 months of every supply in the world, and go, hey, we got to make sure that our kids have food. And people stepped up in the most generous ways, man. And when they did, they had joy. All of a sudden, their anxieties came down. If they had anxiety, it was, how am I going to help? It wasn't about me. And so I've just watched, man, this transformation happen within people when they are others focused during a time of crisis. And that makes profit and things fall away, because you can see the deep adversity that is in other people's lives. And man, you experience the joy of pouring your life out into theirs.
Yep. John,
you said it so well, Casey. You said it so well. Gosh, just one little comment, Mark, and right back to you. And that is, during a crisis, what's really beautiful is, you know, I write books and I teach all these principles, but during a crisis, I get to practice those principles. And crisis separates the pretenders from the players. And if I lack values, I become a pretender very quickly during difficult times because I have nothing solid to latch onto, nothing solid to anchor on. But if I have those good values, the values not only work during a crisis, they even work better because they validate all the things that you have believed. Now they have. When you test your belief becomes a conviction. And that's the difference between belief and conviction. I believe it, but when I'm tested, it now becomes a conviction in my life. And that's true with values, no doubt.
As I suspected, having you two guys on today would make our time feel limited, and it has. But it's you guys being such dynamic leaders. Here's my promise to everyone viewing today: this will not be the last time, nor will it be one of a few times that we platform Casey and John together.
That's right.
We have not even talked about on your right side of your screen, Casey, is movement of change. And I've visualized what that means to you and your organization. It's incredible. You mentioned charter schools, you mentioned transformation. What John and Casey are already doing and what they will do in the area of transformation will be something that every one of you not only will want to know more about, you'll want to be a part of it. Casey, if they want to just get a glimpse of what Movement Mortgage is doing in communities around the world, is there a way that people can lock into you or get to know you a little bit more?
Movement.com, movementfoundation.com. And those are probably the two best. And Instagram's Casey Crawford. And we try to post a lot of our stories, but I think like your organization, the hardest thing we have to do in our organization is tell all the incredible stories of things that are going on. So we're doing our best, and we're in the middle of writing a book about it right now. It's a pleasure. We do, man. We love people reaching out, and we are always happy to help. We give away everything we've learned. So we've packaged up a lot of things that we've done and given away. So if anyone's interested, please reach out. My email also is it's Casey@movement.com, and I get through them all somehow. So if people have questions about what we're doing, feel free to reach out, and we'll do our best to equip you with what we've learned.
Beautiful. You see is two websites there on the screen. Please check that out. And again, I promise you, this will not be the last time that we platform these two. Next week, we're going to have another Leadership When It Matters the Most leader series. I promise you'll want to be back here at the same time, be a part of that. Hey, if something that we can help you with in this idea of shifting, you can go to johnmaxwell.com/shift. And we've got a free mini course that is designed and architected off of John's content, Leadership. And we want to give you that and give you tools to help you lead in these kind of times. Casey, thank you. So grateful for it. John, any last words to Casey and to our viewers today?
Over the top, Casey. You shared your story, and your story needs to be shared. It inspires me every time, and I love you, and I love our relationship. And I'm looking forward to also, and this is not part of the program, but I'm looking forward to in the next year mentoring you and your key leaders on a monthly basis too. That's going to be an incredible growth trip for all of us. And so, any way I can invest in you and help you, let me know, because I want to be part of that team.
Brother, you have been. I told you have been for 12 years. You coach me every night. I got the John Maxwell Leadership Bible by my bedside, man. So whether you know it or not, we have our own little private coaching session every night. And our guys are phenomenally excited, man. John, love you, and Mark, obviously, brother, you too. And it is just such a deep privilege in my life to get to be part of it and working with you guys on our collective movements.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, thanks again. Thanks everyone for viewing. Let's lead. See you next week.